right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. And welcome to Life Enhancement and Development Live. I'm Cassandra Washington. I am your host for this evening. And it is such a pleasure to be with you all here again this evening. And it has been a minute since we have been live. And so I am excited about us going live with you all this evening. We have something great and awesome to talk to you all about. This evening, we're going to be talking about redesigning your life. Redesigning your life. And we do know that in the process of redesigning, it may cause you to have to restructure some things, uh, uh, redo some things, look over some things again, and make some new decisions. And in the process, you may have to rebuild, tear it down, start from the foundation, and go back up. And so tonight we have with us again one of my favorite coaches, effective transformation coach, Bernadette Hicks Kelly. She's going to be with us this evening, giving us some insight into this new program that she has created and she has developed for those person who wants to redesign their life, rebuild their lives. And of course, with at Life Enhancement and Development Enterprises, we're all excited about it and all into it because that's what we are about. We are about giving you strategies and tools to help you align the total man with the true elements of success. So I just thank Bernadette for being with us this evening, and we're going to allow her to greet everyone. How are you doing this evening, Bernadette?
I am doing great. How are you on this evening?
I'm
I
doing
am.
great, doing great. And so I do know you guys, she's a consultant also. So she is so busy and she's stressed in a lot of directions, but she has taken the time to come on and share with us some of her ideas and her tools and strategies that she's using in this coaching program. So we're going to jump right into it because I want to give her time to share with us and talk to us about it. And as I said before, it's called Rebuilding Your Life, which is a part of her Redesign Your Life program. So I want to ask you first of all, what motivated you and inspired you to come up with this program called Rebuild Your Life? And because you were talking to me about the process of redesigning your life and how rebuilding is a part of it. So you came up with this program to rebuild your life. What was your inspiration and motivation for
Um,
creating this program?
you know what, Cassandra? I was reading the story of Nehemiah, and
Mm-hmm.
in the process of reading Nehemiah, that's how it came about. Is redesigning. And when I spoken to some other ladies, I always start with myself first. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember having to go through things. At 20, we go through a stage. At 30, we go through a stage. And at 40, we go through a stage. And certainly at 50, we go through a stage. And now close to 60, we go through a stage. And, and you find that in those stages, you got to recap, you got to rebuild, because you take a moment and you start, just kind of reminiscing on your life. And you start
Mm-hmm.
asking questions. Am I where I'm supposed to be at 25? Am I where I want to be at 30 and 35 and 40 and 50? And I remember listening to Bishop T.D. Jakes one time, and he talked about, I'm too close to the other side now. I can't look back. And at that time, he was 50. And now that I'm in my 50s, I'm like him. I'm too close to the other side now. So whatever I'm going to do has to be done in a hurry. And not that
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to die tomorrow or next year or the next few years. I hope to live forever and forever. I want my 120.
Yes,
But
indeed.
in the
Yes.
process of life process and getting to my 120, I noticed that sometimes every 5 years, I reflect on where I am and where I want to go. But now, as I'm getting older, I'm noticing that's becoming in 6 months, in 1 year.
Look,
The reflections
you
are coming more often.
that's the truth. That is the
Yes.
truth. Reflecting more often.
Yes. Yes, and just
Mhm.
and so that's how the design your life in 52 days. It's just in the story, and I would encourage anyone to go back and read the story. You know,
Mhm.
he did in 52 days what others were trying to do in over 100 years. And so to see that he redid that, and how did he redo it? And so I began to study Nehemiah, like, how did he build a whole wall around a city in 52 days? And he
Mhm.
started with himself. He didn't start with other people. Once he got himself together, then
Mhm.
he went out. And so that's what started the whole 52-day series of redesigning your life, rebuilding your life. You know,
Mhm.
you got to rebuild in order to redesign, and all of the re's, you know, all the same thing.
Because sometimes in the process of redesigning, you have to rebuild. You may have to
Absolutely.
tear down that structure. You what
Absolutely.
and something may have happened to destroy everything that you had in place. Something may have
Exactly.
come along. And so now you, like you said, you have to reflect, you have to reevaluate,
Mhm.
and so it rebuilding can be a part of redesigning.
Absolutely. I
Exactly.
was Yeah, I was
Uh-huh.
talking to a friend of mine today, and we were having this discussion, and she was telling me, she was like, Bernadette, I'm in that stage where, I need to rebuild, I need to regroup. And at that time, she had sold one home in the process of purchasing a home. And she said, I'm finding right now that I'm having to rebuild my life. And here I am in my mid 40s, and never
Mhm.
thought that I was going to be rebuilding. And it had nothing to do with divorce. It had
Mhm.
nothing to do with separation. She's never been married. She doesn't have any children. So it doesn't matter what stage you're in life. You know, sometimes we think we relate this to couples, and then
Mhm.
something happened and people need to rebuild. But it's just an example that single people got to rebuild too. We all have
Yeah.
to rebuild. It doesn't matter whether you're married, single, or whatever. You could be doing a life changing career, and you need to rebuild how you're going to handle this new life of moving into this new career. And so rebuild and redesign is such a large area, and you have to figure out which area of my life really needs to be rebuilt.
Right. And so in this program that you've created and developed, it's like a 6 weeks program. So each week you're gonna be covering a different area. Can you tell us what are those areas? Because it's 6 weeks.
Well,
I think
I'm not sharing all those areas right now. So you got to come to the live in order to find out what we're sharing every 6 weeks. So we're not pre-posting, but what we will do, we will share at the end of this live what's going to be on for the next live.
so. I do know one that you have talked about, and that's how to answer the call to rebuild your life. And
Yes.
how does that call present itself? A lot of times people you hear the call said talked about it. A lot of times when people say that they have been called into ministry,
Yes.
but the call can look different for a lot of different people. So what does the call look like? How can the call to rebuild present itself to a person?
Okay, let's talk about just what you said at first. What is the call? We hear it often in ministries, like, what, I'm called into the ministry. Well, you called to a lot of things now. So people, you're called to be married, you're called to be single, you're called to open a business, you're called to leave a business, you're called to close a business. So that's what we're talking about when you're called to answer the call to something that needs to take place, and you are responsible for it. So when I say answer the call is God has laid this on your heart, and it's bothering you. Something is really bothering you. And you're saying, well, it looks like, I'll say, for example, young women. I remember many years ago, people would say, it looks like somebody needs to do something with these young women. Well, if it's bothering you that something needs to be done with the young women, or something needs to be done with the young men, well, guess who called that is? That's your call. So while you're saying someone, well, guess whose heart is tugging it? It's tugging at your heart. If you're up at night and you're praying about it and you're concerned about it, then guess who needs to handle that? You absolutely need to handle that. So that's how you are called to something. You're called to the thing that's bothering you. Again, we used Nehemiah. Nehemiah was upset about a city he had never seen. He was not even born in Israel, but here he was, a Jew born in captivity, but he was heartbroken when he heard what was going on. Why? Because it was his responsibility to go build the wall, but he was heartbroken when he found out the wall was destroyed. The people were not coming together. They had started something and they had stopped. Now, he could have easily said, well, somebody needs to get that handled, but it wasn't somebody's responsibility. It was his responsibility.
It was his responsibility. And sometimes, when I was listening to you talk about the respond to the call, sometimes things happens in your life that
Yes.
pushes you to
Yes.
rebuild. But
Absolutely.
sometimes we don't want to.
No. It's not easy to rebuild. It's not easy to build. It's not, let alone rebuild. So
Uh-huh.
it's difficult to start. And I always use my own self. And us, Cassandra, remember we were talking about doing videos, and we were saying we need to get on this social media thing. We need to start being active. And we were just, I mean, it was like pulling teeth to get us on here to do it. But even though we knew we didn't really, it wasn't a comfortable place for us, we knew it was something that needed to be done. And we were called to be in ministry. So how are we going to minister, and how are we going to touch the world except we use the tool that allows us to touch the world? So it's an uncomfortable place when it's time to build, and certainly when it's time to tear down and rebuild. It's a very uncomfortable place.
Exactly, because rebuilding requires you to rethink. It push, like you said, it puts you in uncharted territory, something that you're unfamiliar with. I remember, I went to school for business administration, and even in ministry, I spent a lot of time in music. I spent a lot of time in doing that. But when I started getting, these prompts from God to go back to school, go in a totally different area than what, I was like, what?
Yes.
And then, go back to school and get these degrees. I was like, I don't want another degree.
I'm good.
I don't have to have that. But this was the path that he put me on for what it is that he was putting in my heart to do. And so I had to renew my mind to that. I had to get over, and one of the things one of the things was I was 45 when I went back to school to get a master's. And he sent me to a university in one of the coldest states. And I never said that I would never go anywhere where it's cold. And so I had to, and then it happened so fast.
Yes.
That I had to just do it. I didn't have time to be, as what that who moved my cheese. I didn't have time to be hemming and hawing.
Oh, who moved the cheese?
Talking about this is my comfort zone. This is the way I would. But if I wanted to progress in life, and if I wanted the life that I was seeing and envisioning for myself, I had to make those decisions to move out into those things in order to build this life that I could see. And I had to let go of what I thought the plan was.
Yes. Yes. And that's a excellent example, is you have to let go of the past. You have to let go of what you thought the path was. You have to let go of the ideas and how you thought you were going to get there. Because I know so often, I do a lot of consulting, and it's interesting to hear people conversation. And I say the same thing. We can ask God for something, but we don't get to tell him how to do it. If we're saying, God, I want a financial increase, he doesn't always tell us how it's going to come. He may not have told you, you're going to have to lose your job for 6 months in order to get the job that I'm really trying to send you to, because you pray for financial increase. And I'll use healthcare because that's my world. So if you a biller and you're praying for $60,000 a month, you more than likely not gonna make $60,000 as a month being the biller. You probably need to be the manager of the billing department. So now you got to get out of that comfortable place where, look, I know billing backwards and forward. No, you now got to manage some other people. You pray for 60,000. He said, I'm gonna give you 60,000, but this is what you have to now do for that 60,000. And you're like, no, I just wanted to be. No, 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 it doesn't work like that. When we pray and we ask God for something, he gets to decide how he's going to bring it to us. Now, I will say this. We can say, God, I don't want it to be hard. I remember praying for financial increase, and I was like, Lord, I don't want to struggle for it. I don't want to battle. I don't want it hard. I want it to come easy. And guess what? He did bring it easy to me, but he took me into a whole nother industry in order to, he took me into something I was the most uncomfortable with. Like, God, how would you take me into IT industry? And I know nothing about computers. Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just let me stay in this comfort zone? But he took me totally out of what I knew backwards and forward. As you said, I've got some certifications. I done went to school. I done did this for 20 years. And now you'll take me out 20 years?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Thank you for joining us, Yolanda. Yolanda says, getting out of your comfort zone is scary and uncomfortable. And it is, because you used the example of getting into technology and not having any kind of formal education in technology. So that means that you're stepping out into something where you're going to have to, whereas in the science area, you considered yourself pretty comfortable and an expert.
Oh, I was like, can it be chemistry? Can it be physics? Can it be something I know? I know chemistry and I know physics, but why would you take me into a whole nother industry? And again, that industry that I'm like, I'm not comfortable doing computers, and I'm certainly not comfortable writing programs and all of this kind of stuff and doing reports and analyzing and business analysts. And here I stand today and can do it with my eyes closed. But Cassandra, when I tell you could not have told me that 20 years ago I would be doing this, I would have been like, oh no, not me. And that's why God will show us, he will order our steps. He won't show us the whole big picture, because he know if he had shown me that big picture, I'd have shut so far down on him. Like, I'm not doing that. That would have been my shutdown right there. Like, oh no.
You wouldn't have been able to reveal.
Oh no. I know I'm trying to be a millionaire, but if you're saying that's how I gotta do it, like, no, we're gonna have to revamp. We're gonna have to think of something else now. I don't know. But God has a sense of humor too. So he was like, oh yeah, I got jokes too.
Yes, he does. Janice Mitchell, thank you for joining us. Janice says, be careful not to listen to the naysayers. And that's a big one. And sometimes the biggest naysayer is us.
Absolutely. Sometimes you're your own naysayer. Absolutely.
Because
sometimes you're in your own way.
We will talk ourselves out of something. We will talk ourselves out of it because, as you mentioned, and Yolanda was confirming this, it's uncomfortable. We do not like to be uncomfortable. And I often think about how even when God was talking to the children of Israel, and he was telling me, okay, now you prepare yourself to break out, to just overflow. Prepare yourself. And it's in that preparation. We don't like that.
No,
it's in that preparation part, because what he will have you to do to prepare, we don't like it. Like you said, it may require you to go back to school. It may require you to move to another area. It may require you to move into a different industry. It may require you to come out of your comfort zone, because sometimes I can be an introvert, I can be an extrovert sometimes, but mostly I'm an introvert, and a lot of people don't believe that, because I don't really care for crowds, but I do know, because what I am required and called to do, it requires me to be around people. And going into crowds and having to, because some people can automatically go among new people in crowds and just talk, but I have to warm up. I have to warm up, and I have to build myself up to hold a conversation. to start to hold a conversation. Now, once I get started, I'm good.
When you're comfortable. Like, let me get comfortable first.
Yeah, so it requires you to do some things, and even rebuild. It may be getting healthier, doing some
Yes.
things that
Yes.
you don't like, exercising,
Absolutely.
letting go of
Absolutely.
those, letting go of that food, that that favorite comfort food that
Yes.
you have. Rebuilding could mean that you're no longer single, and now you got to share your life with somebody.
Absolutely.
You've been single most of your adult life, and here it is.
Mhm.
Now you got to learn to share your life with somebody, and you got to
Absolutely.
learn how to be put somebody else before yourself.
Absolutely.
It's rebuilding and redesigning your life can just entail so many different things, and it can look different for whatever that person
Absolutely.
is desiring. Now let's talk a little bit about this, because when I thought about rebuilding, I also thought about, as you open up with transitioning to different areas and periods in your life. When you 20 and you're 30, you have all of this energy that, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and then it doesn't come the way you think and come as fast as you think, and then you're in your 40s and then in your 50s, and then all of a sudden look like doors start to open. And
Yes.
you be like, okay, how come you didn't let this happen when I had all this energy?
Yes. And you know what? I think the answer to that question, Cassandra, is just what you said. I wasn't prepared to handle, we're praying for some things sometimes and we're not prepared, or maybe the circle that we're around at that time is not prepared for our increase. So, and it doesn't always have to be financial increase. It
Mhm.
can be wisdom. If you notice, the more wisdom you get, the more you mature. If the crowd around you does not mature or cannot accept you maturing and going to another level, that crowd will fall away, or that crowd will drag you down. They're either going to put a muzzle on you or
Mhm.
they're going to break away. So when you're talking about redesigning, I think the first thing we have to do is make up our mind that this is something I want. Not
Mhm.
I'm not doing this for someone else. I'm doing this because this is what I want for my life. And for the young lady who said about the naysayers, then you won't even hear the naysayers. It won't even make a difference what the naysayers are saying or thinking. When you make up your mind, why am I doing this? So ask the question first, why am I doing this? Why do I want to redesign? Why do I want to rebuild? So I tell people, ask themselves a series of questions. Are you happy where you are? Are you
Mhm.
happy in the job? Are you happy living in the state? Are you happy living in the same home for 50 years and 20 years? Sometimes we just need that, just a new home to make a change. Sometimes we just need a new car. I've gone out and got a new car. I was like, I just wanted a new car. I wanted a change, so I got a new car.
Mhm. 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 And sometimes, and you use that example. I know when I got my new vehicle, I didn't want to, but because I was just, all these things were going in through my mind. I don't want a car note, and I don't
Yes,
want this, and I don't want that, and the car had served me well, but
yes,
I just did not want to. I just didn't want to change. But sometimes, when you make the decision to rebuild and go for more and
yes,
go for better, it requires more responsibility.
absolutely.
It requires you to think a different way, to
Yes,
come up in your thinking. It requires you to make a transition and to make a transformation. And
absolutely.
a lot of times we don't want to put in the work that it takes, and when you're not willing to put in the work and the effort and do what it takes, you become you remain at a standstill, and then we start moaning, what's wrong with my life? Why is it? And
Yes,
and because it doesn't come the way the way it should look to us, we let opportunities and things pass by,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and then another year, 3 months has passed, 3 months have passed, a year, and we're still moaning, I want something better. I and you talk about, so let's talk about this. You talked about making an assessment,
Yes.
making an assessment. I think you have to make an assessment of what you want, like you just said.
Yes,
Once you make an assessment and identify and clarify what it is that you want, I think you then need to make an assessment of what you need, what you have, and
yes.
then what it is that you need.
Exactly. And then work backwards. If you don't know what you want, then at least know what you don't want. Start there. Start making a list like I don't want to live here no more. That's what got me into purchasing a new home. I didn't want to live in the home I was living in. I didn't want to live in the county I was living in. That's what made me move. I purchased a new home. I always wanted a new home, but when I started to work backwards, even a career change, like when I got ready to make a career change, I was like, you know what? I'm not happy in this job anymore. I'm not happy getting up, coming here 9 to 5, driving an hour away, making, I think at that time I was making like $17 an hour. I was no longer happy making that type of money. And so I began to write down, what am I not happy about? And then once I wrote the things that I was not happy about, then I wrote the things about, well, what would make you happy? Then I was like, well, if I made 20,000 a month, and then if I made, if I had a new car, if I had a new house, if I could get my hair done every 2 weeks, things like that, what would make you, and they don't have to be extensive things, and they don't have to be expensive things. It may be that you want to go get your nails and toes done every 2 weeks. I don't know, every week, however you want to do it, but you got to find and start doing those things that will make you happy. I remember Miles Monroe talking about the richest place in the world was in the graveyard. The people had died with ideas. They had died with things they want to do. And it's so often that people get down when they're sick. Really sick. And they say, oh, I wish I had did this. And I wish I had did that. And if the Lord healed me, I'm going to go do this. And a lot of times they don't do it. They do the same life that they were doing before they got sick, because now it's a different type of excuse. COVID is a prime example. Oh, I wish I could just have some time off and I could just rest. If I could just be home for a couple of months, I could really work on my business plan. Did you? While you were off from work, while you couldn't go anywhere, did you really work on your business plan? I could really get my prayer life started. I could start my ministry. Did you? God gave the opportunity, was available. And still available. You got people still haven't gone back to work. So here it is, 2020. Now you got a period of time that you were able to rest. Even though I worked, Cassandra, I worked more remotely. I've always worked remotely, but I worked more remotely. I didn't travel into my client's office and all this kind of stuff. I stayed home and I was working from home. I got to do a lot of things that I had on my to-do list. I was able to go down to my to-do list, and God often reminded me, he reminded me, you said if you had time to rest, this is what you would do. If you had time to do this is what you would do. And I found that I did all of those things, and it's not too late. You still have time. Even if you have a 9 to 5, you still have time. But we got to make time. We got to make time for ourselves. Most of the time, that's the issue. We make time for everybody else, children, grandchildren, the church, the dogs, everybody but ourselves.
And we have to find, and what you have just said is so true. We have to get the courage to do it. We have to get the courage to do it. And I'm not saying it's easy, but if you would just start. If you would just start. Someone shared with me a video of a young lady, and she was talking about just start. But she was using some colorful language while she was saying it. She said, I just don't know. She said, I just don't know no better way to say it. She said, y'all excuse my language. She said, but I don't know no better way to try to emphasize to you, just start. I told the person, I said, I've been saying this for 2 years. Just start. I said, but maybe the colorful language will give the colorful language is what they need to push them to start. But you have to
you're talking about
starting.
Courage to start. And starting doesn't mean a pat on the back. Starting doesn't mean anyone is going to buy your idea. I remember I wrote my first book, Cassandra. Nobody brought the book for 1 year. Nobody. When I say nobody, I'm talking about Amazon. Nobody went to Amazon and bought the book for the first year. I had 0 sales in the first year, other than my little family and friends who were trying to help me out. But as far as people going on to Amazon and ordering it, 0 people ordered the book from Amazon. But guess what happened? I didn't take the book down. I left the book up. I made one phone call. So when people talk about you one phone call away, you one prayer away, it is so true. I'd heard that so many times, but it is so true. I made one phone call to a university and told a professor about my book and asked to come in to be his speaker. And he said, well, what's your book about? And I told him, I said, well, the book is about helping private practice start a business. So not only did I tell him about it, I sent him a copy of it. And all of a sudden I started getting royalty checks. I was like, where I'm getting royalty checks? All of a sudden royalty checks came in and I said, oh my God, for almost the next, I'm going to say next 5 to 10 years, I consistently got royalty checks because this one professor made a required book for his class for 5 to 10 years. But what if I had never written a book? Here I would missed out on all those royalty checks because I never wrote the book. And there's some books in all of us. You know, I still got 2 or 3, 4, 5. I don't know how many books, but what I know is I know there's still some books. I've written another one and working on 2 or 3 more. You know, I jot down everything. And when things come to me, Cassandra, I say, oh, that might be a good book idea. That might be a good, but I still have to start. Just leaving it on a piece of paper. I remember talking to a client and she said, Bernadette, I've written about 5 books. I said, well, where did we go to order them? She was like, I hadn't published. But then it's useless. It's useless. Why have you written 5 books, put them in the corner and still crying broke? That's crazy. I said, your money's sitting over in the corner. You need to go do something about it. So sometimes we got these wonderful ideas. They're there. They're put on the wall. And sometimes we just giving it away. A lot of times we're consultants, we're travel agencies, we're accountants, and we just 100% give the information away. If that is your business, you shouldn't be giving it away. There are certain things you should do in the name of volunteer. And we have to be careful, especially as Christians, we have to be careful that we can separate business from church. We have to separate those 2 things because if you're not careful, you'll be doing it in the name of church. But if God has given you that as a business, then you should be making an income, even if you're offering those services to a church.
And you know, you were talking about the young lady who wrote all the material and had it. I can't remember where I was hearing, but you know, I always like inspirational testimonies or inspirational stories. And I think they was talking, whoever the guy was talking about, a young lady, I think it was Pastor John Jenkins from Maryland. It may have been him, but he was saying the young lady, you know, was calling, crying, like, I think she had gotten divorced, her husband had left her or something, but she was just crying, talking about she didn't have any money and her life got to start all over. She had children and she didn't know what to do. He said, well, what do you? She could bake real good. And he said, don't you have a stove? It was either John Jenkins or Miles Monroe. It may have been Miles Monroe. Don't you have a stove?
Yeah, I think you were telling me about it.
Don't you know how to bake cookies? Well, yeah. He said, you got everything you need. Get in there and start baking them cookies. She started baking cookies and selling cookies and started a business, and the money just started flowing. But what she was thrown into this situation where she had to revamp her life.
She had to redesign. And you know what? It was Bill Winston, Cassandra. That's who it was. It was Bill Winston. We was on one of his conferences and he was talking about that. And it's so true. And when we talk about everything that you need is already inside of you, even if you've gone to school and learned a trade or learned a tool or got a degree, that information, that wisdom, the knowledge to do that was already inside of you. God gave you the place, you know, he ordered your steps. Well, go to this university and do this and do that. But that was already inside me. Nothing new came out. You know, me now doing IT, girl. Who knew that was inside of me?
That was inside of you.
I mean, so when God was telling me everything you need is already inside of you, it's so true. So when we're talking about financial increase, we're talking about wisdom, and God gave me an idea. The ideas is inside of you. Sit down, meditate, get by yourself. A lot of times we just don't spend enough time by ourselves. If you can spend enough time by yourself, everything you need will come pouring out. But you got to spend time with yourself. You got to have a desire for it to come out. And you got to have a desire to redesign and rebuild. It's in there. Allow it to come out.
Exactly. Thank you, Yolanda. She confirmed for me that it was Miles Monroe. that it was
Okay.
Dr. Miles Monroe. I know, I remember it was. I knew it
Hmm.
was either him or John Jenkins because they always giving great wisdom. And you know, we think that, and it is during those times of pressure.
Yes.
It
Yes.
is during those times of pressure when we're in the fire, or when we're thrown into a challenge, or when we think life has just tore us up,
Yes.
when everything is in shambles, and we
Yes.
just think that it is over.
Over. Over. You know.
we we just think it is over. And I do want us to talk a little bit about this, and we're gonna go back to the meditation because that's one thing I
Okay.
want to bring up too, because this is something that you have experienced, and it is something that a
Hmm.
lot of people have experienced. A lot of people were married, and
Yes.
especially women, but
Yes.
men too, because I have met men and women who were married, and some of them thought that everything was fine.
Yes.
But then the spouse was like, I don't want to be married anymore.
Yes.
Or they do something to, to violate the marriage, or they do something to be disrespectful to the marriage. And then here you are in your 40s and your 50s. And I've known people in their 60s
Yes. As
having
late as 70
to
now. As late as
start
70.
having to start over. Talk
Yes.
a little bit about that, because yes, we're trans, we're maturing. We're
Yes.
maturing, but sometimes even in the maturing process, people go through things like divorce. Or I was talking to a young lady the other day. She got two parents that are sick,
Yes.
trying to take care of parents that are aging, and you find yourself in new a whole new territory, or in areas
Absolutely.
in life that you never expected to be
Absolutely. So again, in that when you're finding those things, stop. The first thing to do is stop. You to try to have a conversation, even with when you're angry, with that conversation, you don't need to have a conversation when you're angry. And so most of the time we take that as having that conversation with someone else. You don't need to have that conversation with yourself. When you angry and you frustrated, the first thing you need to do is stop. Just stop, calm your mind. As you say, rest. It's a real thing. If you can go rest for a minute, it'll help
in.
get your thoughts together. It'll help settle your mind. Because if you're all over the place and you're angry, and you're making decision out of being angry, as you're making those decisions, you're making bad decisions. You're making the
Hmm.
wrong decisions. It could be even loss. We're talking about divorce. Divorce is a loss, but even in death, people have lost people in death and don't know what to do. Like COVID again, we talk about COVID, but that's when we saw a mass number of people die, and people are like, I'm lost. I don't even know. I don't know how to pay a bill. I don't know where anything was kept. So that's why it's so important that you stop for a minute and get yourself together. Remember Sylvester? I remember my mama used to say that. We always watch Sylvester and he'd fall apart. And then he would say, pull yourself together. And Cassandra, you said it last week when you was ministering that your mom used to say it. And I was so tickled. That was my mom's word. You need to pull yourself
Yourself
together.
together,
And
yes,
so,
indeed.
and sometimes we just need to stop and pull yourself together, especially if you are responsible for someone else. So if you've gone through a divorce and you have children, grandchildren, a dog, and somebody else is looking for you to handle some responsibility, you got to stop and pull yourself together. And people ask me that, well, how did you do it? Well, what happened? I didn't even have time to fall apart. It's like, well, why didn't you fall apart? Because I didn't even have time. You don't have
Mhm.
time when you have a responsibility, or as we said, when there is a call that you have to answer. You have to find a place where you stop and you rest and you meditate, and yes, make sure that you are healed, because hurt people. So a
Mhm.
lot of times when you're in relationships, whether that's a marriage, whether that's a business relationship, whether it's a career, people bring all of that hurt into whatever they're doing. So you get those managers. I've worked for some managers and they come to work mad, and they, how you mad at 8 o'clock in the morning? It's 7. How you
Mhm.
mad? How are you already mad? And you're mad for the rest of the day, and you're angry and you're bitter. And you know what? It most of the time is not about the staff. It
Right.
really is something has happened at home, something
Mm-hmm.
happened in childhood. It's gone as far back as childhood. I've met people that say, I can't be alone. I got to have somebody with me. Why? What happened to you? You're not a twin. So if you're not a twin, why you can't be alone? Yes, you can. Now you got to redesign your mind. You got to rebuild yourself and say, I can do this by myself. If there's nobody else here, I can do this by myself. More importantly, I've got to do this. I've
Yeah.
got to do this for myself. I don't want to die and be full of all the gifts and full of all the talents. As we say, Miles Monroe used to say, I want to die empty. And that's it. I want to die empty. So make up your mind that you want to utilize every gift, every talent that you have, and you want to die empty. But if you can meditate and find a way to, as we said, and pull yourself together, you got to pull yourself together. You can't be the victim forever. You can't be woe is me forever.
Right.
At one point, you got to, I don't care what has happened to you, you cannot be the victim forever. I'm not saying don't have your time to, go through remorse and, and rebuild and all. Yes, we all need that time, but that time comes with a limit. After a while, you're going to have to get it together. You're going to have to pull it together, or you're going to be a victim forever. Everything that happens to you, you'll feel like you're a victim. Every time I go to the grocery store, somebody get the cart before I can even get to the car. I was just about to get the last bag of beans and somebody got the last bag of beans. Everything will become a victim in your life. You'll always be a victim. And you resolve that by pulling yourself together and say, you know what, this is the last day. This is not going to happen. Ain't nobody getting the car today. I wish you would step in front of me with my car. Not today, you not get my car. And that happens with your mind. We talk about it all the time. You got to get your mind together. You got to pull yourself together and stop being a victim and woe is me. As you said, if you can go back to school at 45, it's no excuse. I've seen people 75, 85 going back to school to get a high school diploma. They're going back to get a high school diploma. So we have no excuses. All we have to do is make a decision that I'm going to pull myself together.
And like Era was saying, that we said, we all find ourselves in uncharted territory sometimes, and that can be scary. But then your perspective of the situation of what has happened means a lot too, because
Absolutely.
we look at it as, and it can be hurtful, it can be painful, it can be scary, it could be a catastrophe, it could be, but that situation is it's an opportunity in disguise.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think the biggest thing is embarrassment. People are embarrassed about the simplest things. I work with some other ladies who have gone through divorce and some other men who've gone through divorce. And you know what, Cassandra, that's their biggest thing. They said, I was so embarrassed. And I was like, well, what exactly? And they was like, I don't know. I was just embarrassed for people to find out, because I had this life that it was perfect and it was good. I said, no. It's not that you had this life that it was perfect and good. And people's like, well, I didn't know. Well, why didn't you tell me? Why did you need to know? How was you going to fix it? If I can't fix it, he can't fix it. You sure can't fix it. How as an outsider was you going to fix it? No. And you don't. And so anybody that's going through divorce or marriage or relationship, got fired from their job last week, whatever, it's okay. And you don't have to be embarrassed because you're not the only one. And I think that's the first thing we have to accept. I'm not the only one that's ever got fired. Plenty of people got fired. I'm not the only one that ever got divorced. Plenty of people got divorced. But don't let the enemy make you become a victim and woe is me. And I'm not going back outside and I'm not getting back in no other relationship. Surely don't get in a relationship if you still angry and you bitter. But if you have been healed and set free and you want to be married, you need to get married because I'm telling you. But anyway, that's the next series, y'all. That's when Cassandra covered relationships. We'll talk about that part.
Because that's the time to revamp yourself. That's the time to remodel yourself or to redesign. Like, as you were saying, let's go get your hair cut.
Yes.
Go get your new wardrobe.
Yes.
Start going to new places. Start going to different places.
Totally different places.
Get back out there. What do you envision for yourself? And we were saying sometimes people don't know what you want. Things I have found many times we settle for less than what God wants us to have. And he
Absolutely.
is so good and he loves us so much that he don't want us to settle. So
He
he'll
did
let
not.
something come your way to shake
Absolutely.
you up and to wake you up and make you start thinking and make you start asking
And
questions.
desire and have desire.
Yeah.
I remember Cassandra, I would not, there are certain stores I wouldn't go in because I already knew the slacks was $1,200 a pair.
Mhm,
And so I
mhm,
was like, mm-mm. But I remember having a women's group, and I said, you know what, y'all, we're going to go do something that we never would do. We're going to go in the stores that we never, and when it was like 4 or 5 of us, and still with all of us going together, they was like, I'm not going in there. I'm not going. Some was like, I'm not. I was like, well, I'm going here and I'm going to try on everything in this store. And so we were, girl, we done dressed up. We done got in there and we got on jackets that's $5,000. We got on Sean John and just all kind of
mhm.
stuff. And I said, it's just a nice feel to go in here and be like, you know what? I can buy something in here. And I remember going back to that store and I didn't even really want anything out the store, but it was nice to go back and say, if I wanted anything in this store, I can go buy anything in this store. Now, I do love perfume. And so my husband has this thing about buying perfume. And so, I would have picked my perfume up, but I forgot to get it. So I had some Tom Ford one day, and I was like, "Ooh, I love Tom." And then he had the Bond 9, and then the other day I got some something Dior or whatever,
Uh-huh.
because it's just those are things. I wouldn't have picked up a $400 bottle of perfume or $300 perfume. Marshall's perfume was all right with me. TJ Maxx perfume was all right, but now it makes you feel different. It gives you just a different feel. So go out and celebrate you. I remember, Cassandra, when we were all single, we would talk about celebrating ourselves, and we would go out and get our hair done. We take our own self to dinner.
Mhm.
It's like I still can go to dinner. If he can't go to dinner, I still can go to dinner by myself. Why? Because when I was single, I went to dinner by myself. Treat yourself. If you are looking to get married, treat yourself how you want to be treated, so that
Mhm.
when that person come along or whatever, he knows what to expect from you, because you're saying, this is what I expect from you. And as you said, don't settle for what you don't expect. If you are the person that loves to get gifts and nice gifts, and all of a sudden, Brother John, he said, well, I don't buy gifts. Well, set John free. Let him go.
Let John go.
Yeah, we're not doing a relationship class tonight, y'all. I got to come back for that one. She's doing that another day. But I'm just simply saying, on tonight, when you're rebuilding and you're redesigning, do something you totally would not have done. If you would not have wore a short haircut, go get it all cut off, honey. Color it blonde, green, purple, whatever color you want to. Do something that's so extreme that when people see you, they be like, you what? I can't believe you. I would have dreamed in a million years that that's what you would have done. Exactly. Because you knew the old me, this the new me, this the 2022 and 2023. So we're challenging you. If you're listening to this, go do something so great and do something that you always wanted to do. It's amazing how I meet women who are 40 and 50, and they're still living a life that someone else assigned to them. They're not living the life that they want. They're living the life that someone else assigned to them. And so they said, well, I look like this and I dress like this because this is proper. Who said that's proper? Who said
Right.
that?
Just like they said, don't wear white after September. You don't tell me when to wear white. If I want
Exactly.
to wear white in October, November, December, I'm going to wear white.
I'm going to
And
wear
that,
white.
who made that rule? But
Exactly.
what I want you all to do in the chat, since we're talking about, I want you all in the chat to put one thing that you have a desire to do, but you have not done it. Ira says she's going to buy Creed one day. Now,
Woo!
head on Ira.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so put one thing in the chat, you all. One thing that you desire to do, but you have not done. And it could be for any reason. It could be because you're afraid. It could be because you don't have the money or the opportunity haven't presented itself. Just one thing that you would like to do and you have not done it yet. So if you all would be willing to share, just put that in the chat. And while you all are doing that, we're going to get ready to close out. But I just want to say, Shamika says she wants to write a book.
Shamika, don't write the
Shamika,
book, complete the book, publish the book. Writing is the easy part. Publish.
I believe you know what? I know Shamika can write that book. I know she
Writing
got
is the easy part. It's the publishing. It's the publishing piece. Because
it.
that's where the fear comes. You can sit and you can write it all day and look good on a piece of paper and you don't re-edit and edit and edit. The fear comes when you close your eyes and hit submit. So close your eyes and hit submit.
I believe in Shamika. I believe I'm speaking for Shamika. Shamika gonna write that book.
Absolutely.
Shamika, I'm looking for that book. I'm looking for that
Absolutely.
book. We're not gonna put no timeline on you, Shamika, but I think you need to put you a timeline, put you a timeline on there because Shamika needs to do that. Let's see. Yolanda said, contact the owners of Wendy and McDonald's to do customer service. Go ahead on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Start with your local McDonald's and your let me tell you this, Yolanda. I live in Georgia. It's very rare that I do business with the state of Georgia because they don't like to pay my fee. So what I would say to you is come out of the state you live in and go to a state somewhere else. When I say go, I mean contact another state. I found that West Coast is willing to pay my fees. And so that's where I get my most business is West Coast, not from Georgia. I can count on one hand how many clients I have in Georgia, but on the West Coast is where my clients come from.
Girl, I'm loving what they putting in these comments.
Let's read. Let's read.
Listen, Janice says she did it today.
What?
She bought a
I love it. I love it. She bought a Mercedes.
Oh my God. I love it.
So Janice, you need to start Mercedes Monday. So every Monday have a YouTube, have a go live on Facebook, something while you in your Mercedes and give us some encouraging words called Mercedes Monday.
All right. Ira said that she wants to speak in front of a large group one day and feel good doing it.
You can do that today. Go and do it on YouTube. Go ahead and do it on Facebook. That's a large crowd and you can feel comfortable.
Yes, indeed. And so why did I have you all to do that? And Janice, hers has manifested. Because when you put it out there in the atmosphere, when you put it out there and you make it known, now I believe you're going to move toward it. You're going to move toward it. You may have to say it again. You may have to say it again. And since you put it out here on live, see, it's out here for the world to see now.
Absolutely. You got past the fear. You have found the courage and you did it.
Yes.
You found the courage to say, this is what I really want to do. So if that's what you really want to do, that's your call. So those who said, like Yolanda said, the workshop, Yolanda, that's what you're called to. If you have a desire to do it, step out there and do it.
Mm-hmm. And I know she has a wonderful program. She just got to put it out there.
Absolutely.
Have to put it out there. And I believe that these awesome companies will love, because customer service, oh my God, it is such a big deal.
Customer service, team building, it's such a huge business, and they pay well for you to come in to do them. Ask me how I know.
Yes. And so I just want to challenge her to make that call this week.
Do it.
Make that call this week. She said
tomorrow is Friday.
So she got one day. She has one day. Make that call. Make that call. And that's me challenging you. But what for you to put that there, I believe for you to say that, God has already put it in your heart to do that.
Absolutely.
He has already put it in. She is laughing.
24 hours. 24 hours.
No, 24 hours.
24 hour turnaround.
I tell you, this has been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And thank you all for joining us. So Bernadette, right quick, when does this program start?
We were initially going to start this program August 1st. And so I think we're going to stick with that, Cassandra. So I think we should go ahead and stay live with what we're doing now and do it for the next 6 weeks and just have people jump on. There's no cost to you. We want you to come on. We want you to enjoy what we're doing. And let's redesign together. We can absolutely redesign together. So this time next week, we'll be looking for you.
Yes, indeed. So Janice, you got to come up with another one now. You've accomplished
Absolutely.
that one. You've accomplished that one, Janice. So you have to come up with another one. And so I'm writing down what Era and Yolanda said, writing it down. And so we're
Cassandra,
going
we
to
didn't get yours. We didn't get yours, Cassandra.
Oh well, my one of the things that I want to do and overcome, I want to invest it, start with one investment in the stock market.
Okay.
I want to do that. I want to choose a business and I want to make an investment, and I want to do that within the next week. It's something that makes me nervous, because I don't know a lot about it, but I've been reading and studying and listening, but you don't really learn until you actually do it.
Absolutely.
Until you actually do it. So I'm going to that's my goal. That's something that I've set for myself, that I need to do that soon. And I need to get over that anxiety. It's not necessarily fear, but it's anxiety about making the wrong decision.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So that's mine. All right. So Janice is going to come up with another one, and we are going to be speaking it. Because see, we don't have to pray and ask God if that's what you're supposed to do. Because I believe the fact that you said it, and it's something that He wants you to do. So we're going to be speaking it with you. And I'm just looking forward to Yolanda doing customer service training and workshop for Wendy's and McDonald's, and Era being on that stage talking before a great crowd.
A TED Talk would be awesome. A TED Talk would be awesome.
Yes.
Yes.
And she's going to enjoy, she's going to thrive and just be in love what she's doing while she's standing there sharing what the wisdom and knowledge and the gifting that God has put in her. This has been awesome. Absolutely. This has been awesome. And so we're inviting you, and you all tell someone else. It's going to be live, and it's real time engagement, rebuilding and redesigning the life you want. And so take an assessment this week. Take some time to sit alone and meditate and let God show you what it is that you need to do, what you need to start to rebuild your life.
Pull it out of you. Pull it out of you.
All right. Well, Miss Bernadette, Transformation Coach, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
We will see you all again next week, 7:00 next Thursday. Good night, you guys.
Good night.